I think we're live, Dave.
It says it's live.
Let's pretend we've not been talking for the last 20 minutes. Dave,
Oh, who are you?
fancy seeing you here.
Get out of my house.
I get that a lot. Let me just see if I can play you some fancy theme music. I'll just hold on a second. It's the least you deserve, for sure. Cut that out before we get sued. Dave, how are you?
I'm extremely well, thank you. Very good to see you.
Yeah, it's always good to see you. I think the last time I saw you was just over a year ago. At the,
I know, that's ridiculous. That fish, yeah.
Kept bumping into you and getting drunk for some reason.
Yeah, basically, that was it. You know, it was started with gin and then went downhill, or uphill. I don't know.
More of that later.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to see you. I know you. You're not long back in the UK, having been out in the wilderness.
Yes, yeah. We were over. I took a family holiday, a bit of work, and then took a family holiday in New Zealand at exactly the wrong point, and ended up through a whole catalogue of farcical proportions. Ended up being stuck there for 6 weeks. And everybody goes, "Oh, that must have been a really nice place to stay." It was in lockdown. You know, we were allowed to walk to the supermarket, and that was it. You know, we weren't kind of going off and climbing mountains or hunting kiwis or whatever. You know, but it was, you know, we felt safe and it was good, and we got home, and yeah, here we are.
And obviously, the question that springs to mind is: were the sheep in lockdown or?
I don't know, because we were in lockdown. I presume that they seem extremely well behaved. So yeah, I would like to think so.
Good.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Well, yeah, there may be some folks watching who are just seeing two beardy men talking, which is, you know, fairly common these days, to be frank. So just to back up and rewind a little bit, for those people that may not know who you are and what you do, would you care to, within a sort of 5-minute or less time frame, just bring us up to speed with who the hell you are and what you do?
He is a strange, hairy man with an increasingly large beard. I'm Dave Broom. My short CV is I'm a Glaswegian who gets paid to drink and then write about it. And basically, I've been writing about booze for over 30 years. I ran a pub before that, worked in Oddmans before that, wrote a bit about music as well, and we'll probably come to that at some point. So I had 7 years as a features editor on a Drinks Trade Weekly, and then I went freelance in '95 and began specialising in spirits pretty much a year after that. And yeah, since then, I've written a few books. I've worked on Whisky Magazine, ScottishWhisky.com. I've now got my own website, thewhiskeymanual.uk. I do some talking and what I perhaps pretentiously call teaching. So kind of bartender stuff or company stuff. And I made a film. Yeah, made a film last year or the year before, which is now about to come out on Vimeo on demand on the 25th of this month. And that's kind of what I do. I just kind of sit here and write and scheme and plot and taste, and yeah, that's me.
You basically do what the rest of us aspire to do.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe, I'm quite sure there's people out there who do things I would aspire to. No, I mean, I always say, you know, I was very lucky. I was in the right time at the right place. You know, when I started, you know, spirits were beginning to take off. There were,
Yeah.
there were 3 people in the UK writing about it. There was no internet. There was no blogging. The marketplace, if you want to call it that, was completely open. So yeah, I mean, I was lucky to get in to this game at a relatively early stage, and considerably younger. Yeah, and it's been good, you know, and it's been good fun, and it's been fascinating, and it's been challenging and exciting, and all of these things. It's the way in which whiskey, especially, obviously, you know, we're concentrating whiskey tonight, but the way in which whiskey has changed since, you know, I walked through the door of Oddmans in the start of the 1980s when distilleries were closing down to now. Where you've got 140 distilleries in Scotland and 30 in England and thousands in the US, etc., etc. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable what has happened in that period of time.
Yeah, and you would have been in Oddmans possibly just before me, but around the same time in the sort of mid-late 90s, where you couldn't give the stuff away.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and you know, Oddmans had an extraordinary selection of whiskey. You know, Nick Blacknell was a buyer at that point, who remains a dear friend, and the stuff that they got mainly from Cadenheads and Murray McDavid, the whiskies that were out there that we were just drinking because nobody wanted to buy them.
They were so happy to have open tasting bottles as well. Yeah. And we were more than happy to avail ourselves of those tasting bottles.
I know, and you know, I was speaking to Nick recently, and Stephen Marshall, actually, who's contemporaneous with you. And just thinking about, you know, what we had, and oh my God, should we have kept it? And
no.
Actually, we genuinely enjoyed it. We genuinely loved what was being sold and sharing it and learning about it. And
it was a fabulous place. It really was.
Yeah.
Anyway, we could talk about that for hours.
We could reminisce and bore people. I'm sure we are already. So.
Yeah, it's just you and me, and I'm bored already. I'm joking. Okay, so I think we'll turn to your first whiskey and song choice. So if you maybe just tell us a wee bit about the first whiskey that you've chosen for tonight. And
the first whiskey I've chosen is Antiquary, or Antiquary, depending on what part of the country you're in. I've always called it Antiquary. Which I think is one of the great forgotten blends. And it's not even an underrated blend. I just think people don't even necessarily know it exists. But those of us who have tried it and know it love it, for it's always been exceptional. I remember first seeing it. This is very early in my whiskey drinking life. And I was in a bar in Glasgow. It was a jazz pub in Glasgow, and there weren't many of them. I remember looking behind the bar, at the gantry behind the bar, and it was this really weird, quite Art Deco angular bottle, really, really strange shaped bottle. And I went, that looks interesting. Packaging. I'll have a dram of that. And that was the first time I tried it. And yeah, I just think it's an amazing, amazing whiskey and needs to be better known. And I've actually got a dram of it here. I realised I didn't actually have the standard bottle. This is the 21-year-old, slightly tattered label, extremely good. But the 12-year-old, geez, and that's an amazing, amazing dram. So, you know, I thought I'd pick it because it was there at the beginning of my whiskey life. I mean, the beginning of my whiskey life was really being in pubs. You know, being in pubs in Glasgow and seeing old men drinking whiskey, and my dad drank whiskey, my uncles drank whiskey, etc. But, you know, they would be there at the bar with a dram, and the wee kind of spigot on the bar, and they would like top up their dram with water, or there'd be bottles of lemonade, and some of them might have lemonade with it. And that's what whiskey was. Whiskey was, you know, part of that culture. You know, I was just brought up with it, and it was blends. And nobody was drinking malt.
No,
it was blends. So I thought, let's start with an amazing blended whiskey, and that's kind of the start of the story. It's almost like I thought it through.
Now, I'm just going
my goodness.
Just gonna try and do this. Oh, I've given away the surprise, but never mind.
Oh, never mind. There you go. See, look at that big bottle. I always think that I don't know whether they have, but they've kind of slimmed the bottle down a little bit. But yeah, please, folks out there, drink more blends. Blends are amazing and incredibly versatile, and they're incredibly tasty. And if you haven't tried this, please, please, please do, because it's an absolute belter.
Absolutely. And tell us about the tune. If you were stranded and you wanted to.
The tune, I again, this is kind of going back to my younger days. I was introduced to this band, Incredible String Band, by one of my dearest and oldest friends, a guy called Douglas Lipton. And they're kind of what we would now call psychedelic folk. They were there in 1967. They're really big. They play at Woodstock and everything. Incredible fusion. And this was kind of the music that just kind of flicked a switch in my mind. A bit like the way Whisky flicked a switch in my mind, that it was different. It was kind of folk music, but it was psychedelic, and it was weird, and there was all these strange instruments, and the songs were long and rambling and mystical, and yeah, I still love them. And the one I've chosen is one called A Very Cellular Song, which is the first track in their third album, Hangman's Beautiful Daughter. And it's kind of an autobiographical song about, in a slightly surreal fashion, slightly acid-tinged memories of growing up in Scotland. So there you go. Amazing.
Great.
Band.
I just not to embarrass you in any way, but I did get the message about the change of tune. So I've tell us, but I didn't put it on that presentation. So it's Coyote.
Yeah, Coyote there.
Yeah. So
are we playing Coyote there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. That's not a problem. Okay? As well. Yeah. That's even longer and rambling. The reason I kind of switched at the very, very last minute is that it's kind of hard, because it's so long and rambling. It's hard to pick 30 seconds of sanity.
I can attest to that. I've listened. No,
any Incredible String Band is good by me. So
right. Well, let's listen to our allowed 30-second allotment.
Drink along.
Well, I tell you what. Let's do it with some sound.
Oh, good.
Just
I'll have to sing.
Just bear with me. Technical issues, Dave. You know.
The natural chords revolve, ever changing, seeded elsewhere, planted in the garden fair, grow trees, grow trees.
Hate freedom out.
Extraordinary. Yeah, I know. Sitar suddenly comes in, and it's an amazing piece of work.
30 seconds is not long enough.
It's not long, and it was funny when you invited me very kindly to join you in this show.
Crazy.
Anyway, you've got to pick 5 drams and five records, and I went, oh yeah, fine, that's good fun. And I kind of picked the drums relatively quickly, and I was being driven demented by trying to find just 5 tunes. It took me considerably longer. And I eventually just went, right, okay, you have to stop. So then picked from a playlist of about 150. They all mean something.
Absolutely. And I could ask you next week and you'd have a different 5.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, you asked me 5 minutes then. You'd have a different 5. Yeah.
No, I realise it's a tough one, but, we've got to put the marker down somewhere.
Exactly. And great, because I've got some antiquity and I've listened to the Incredible String Band and there we are. There's me back as a callow youth in Glasgow with short hair and no beard, wandering around.
Well, more of that later, because I was looking for an image of you without a beard online, and came up with some interesting results.
Yeah, I'll be shocked. You know,
you truly will be. Anyway, right. So we've got some questions to answer, which I've been asking each of our guests. So it's only fair that I ask yourself. Now, you've possibly done more tastings and more presentations and tutorials than anyone we've spoken to so far, and therefore you must have spoken to and had interaction with thousands and thousands of people. Amongst those people, have you ever met anyone who's told you or asked you something which you thought was the most incredible whiskey myth you've ever heard before that you maybe had to debunk?
Debunking. Yeah, I've done a few gentle debunking. You know, I always.
Of course.
Yeah, because you know, I'm going to answer this as I'm racking my brain. I kind of answering this. I was trained. One of my great mentors was a guy called Mike Nicholson, who was distillery manager at Lagavulin, Lochnagar, various. He was, you know, Diageo for years and years and years. Amazing blues guitarist, great guy.
Yeah.
And Mike taught me so much in the way of education, the way to talk to people, because I've been one of the tutors on a training course called the Model Advocates course for 20 odd years. And Mike used to run it. And I used to see the way that Mike would answer some of the questions, like some of the debunking questions, which is never to say, oh, you're wrong. You know, because people are genuinely wanting to know. And if you go, oh, no, that's ridiculous. That's an absurd thing to think. They will feel stupid. And the whole point about people who are at tasting, they want to be given confidence. They want to be able to walk away thinking that they've learned something, that they've enjoyed themselves, and they can then tell their friends something as well. So, yeah, you got to be very careful about the whole kind of debunking thing. You know, and you know, there's been loads. You know, the very simple one of, oh, the older it is, the better, and you know, sherry casks are better than bourbon casks, and oh god, you shouldn't, you know, all the things, you know, you shouldn't add water, you should add water, etc., etc. And also some of the, I think rather than myths, the one that's really sprung to mind, which really did flummox me, was when I was doing a class in, I think in London, doesn't matter where it was, but it was in London. And I said, you know, and this whiskey, you know, and you boom, bam, 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 bam. And you'll see, you know, really fantastic long finish. And hand went up in the audience. And this chap who was German, actually, said, and I won't do a German accent for that reason. He said, how do you measure the length of a finish? And I went, sorry? And he went, how many seconds? I went, well, how many seconds is a long finish compared to a short finish or a medium finish? Yeah. Surely you have timed it. And I'm kind of going, no. You know, and you can feel the audience just kind of going, oh, was that a stupid question? Or really, was that a very clever question? Does this man know anything? And I have to confess that I've still never measured how long a long finish should be. But yeah, that was, if not debunking, then it was kind of bringing me down a peg. Yeah.
Surely,
think again.
At that point, surely, did you not think, there could be a book in this?
Yes, it's another whiskey book. It's debunked.
Let's measure the finish.
Broom,
together.
Yeah, I mean, you just get. I mean, I love the questions you get in tastings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're asked, you know, that they're asked, you know, just like, you know, a regular one is, you know, why aren't barrels square? Because you could fit more in the warehouse if they were square. Which is point, but they're quite hard to roll if they're square. You know,
that's a good one.
Yeah. But it's good, you know, and you think, God, that's a really funny question. You think, actually, it's a really clever question. You know,
why aren't they octagonal?
Why aren't they? Yeah, why aren't they like the antiquary bottle? You know,
Yeah,
they look amazing. You know, whiskey, not Jack, but something else. You know,
it would definitely change the appearance of the traditional dunnage warehouse.
yes, yeah. I think we should look at. Actually, there's I was at what was Box is now North Coast Distillery in Sweden, and I met this amazing cooper, an amazing Swedish cooper. He's doing Swedish oak and various things. He has actually built for Box essentially a square barrel because they were called Box, and then they changed their name. So the joke is it doesn't work quite as well. But the corners are slightly rounded, but it's quite definitely not the usual barrel shape.
It wasn't based on your suggestion, though.
Oh God, no, and I have never suggested that it's such an absurd notion. Plenty of other absurd notions. I remember hearing once, and I think it was some of the young blenders at Diageo, who obviously had a quiet day one day, and they were trying to work out if you poured in huge amount of Coca-Cola into a sherry butt, how many packets of Mentos would it take? Actually cause such a reaction that the butt would start rolling. Those are the valid experiments that we should be encouraging in Scotch whisky.
And how many was it?
I don't think they were ever given permission. But if they're watching, they know who they are.
Okay, well, maybe we'll try and get them on and tell them to explain themselves. Okay, well, I guess we should move on to your next whiskey. Tell us about the second whiskey you've chosen for this evening, Dave.
The second whiskey is Hackshaw. And I said, when we were having a wee chat about it, I went, well, I better pick the new one, because it's so hard to get Japanese whiskey and et cetera, et cetera. And you, again, very generously went, you can pick anyone you want. It's desert island. So I picked the Hackshaw 18. Mm-hmm. I just love Hackshaw. For those of you who don't know Hackshaw, it's the second distillery that was built by Suntory in Japan. It's in the South Japan Alps. Actually, a relatively remote site in the middle of a national park. Amazing forest, huge mountain opposite, huge mountain behind it. Big distillery. Was the biggest single malt distillery in the world at one point. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't know if you're going around for it. All the warehouses and everything kind of hidden away in the trees. Pardon me. And it's one of these whiskies that just seems to distill its environment. So it's made, this being Japan, in about four or five different styles, from unpeated up to actually quite heavily peated. But all of them share this characteristic of being really green. So you get herbal characters, bamboo, grass, green apple, that lovely kind of minty character that comes through, almost a mossy note. And they're just incredibly fresh, beautiful whiskeys. Yeah. And the fact that they make some of the heavier peated ones means that a small amount of that can just be fed in just to give a tiny little touch of smoke drifting through this amazing forest. Yeah. And the 18 for me, I mean, I love all Hackshaw. I love the 12-year-old for the old 12 for its real freshness. But the 18 had that little touch more peat in it, not too much wood, mm-hmm. and it's just sublime whiskey.
Lovely. Yeah. I mean, you have the advantage over me. I've still never made it to Japan, Dave. It's a
good time to go. There's so many new distilleries coming. Mm-hmm. I've been going since about 2000, and I think it was maybe my 2006 or so before I actually saw whiskey being made.
Yeah,
all the distilleries were closed or on such short-term working.
Yeah,
and now there's so many new distilleries opening up. It's actually a great time to go to Japan to see what the industry's doing. So yeah.
Well, it's very high up my bucket list. I'll just pretend to be you and swan about. Well, I shaved it off at the beginning of lockdown. This is it recovering. So
yeah,
it's got a ways to go. I might shave it off again. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, Hakushu. I must admit, I there's not many Japanese whiskies I've tasted and thought, no, that's not for me. And certainly Hakushu, with that, like you say, that option for that little bit of peat just to balance out the sweetness and the aromatics. It's just beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it's divine stuff, and I think he was always kind of slightly overlooked as well. Yeah, yeah, I seem to be picking sort of the underdogs here. You know, Yamazaki was the first since everybody talked about Yamazaki, and Yuichi won big awards, and Yuichi tends to be bigger and heavier and punchier and smokier. And Hakushu was always this kind of slightly quieter whiskey. But yeah, gorgeous stuff.
Yeah. Well, there it is in its glory.
Yeah. Good luck if you could find a bottle of that. 500 quid or whatever.
Well, I think you can, but you're not going to be looking anything kind of downwards of 500 quid. I think.
Yeah.
If that,
which is utterly crazy. Yeah.
Well, unless you've got a spare 500 quid, you want to just drink.
I did look around to see if I had one, but no.
Well, okay. So tell us about the tune that you've chosen to.
I travel a lot, so I travel for about a third of the year. So yeah, I'm away from home a third of the year, and you know, travel does things to the mind, and it's always good fun, and it's always interesting. And I always listen to music, but there are times on long haul flights where you just want something quieter. There are times when you're on your own. I sound really depressed here, but there are times when you're on your own in the hotel room, you just want something which kind of speaks to your emotion. For it can get lonely out there sometimes. And this is a piece of music that I always have with me. And sometimes it makes me happy, and sometimes it makes me sad. Sometimes it's melancholy, sometimes it's just contemplative. But it's just an extraordinary piece of music. So it is one of Beethoven's late quartets. It's quartet number 15. And this is an extract, 30-second extract of the third movement of the string quartet, which is a fairly hefty piece of work. So off you go, and I'll tell you some more about it.
Well, hold on a minute. You're relying.
Oh no, I'll keep talking about it. It was written. It's a really interesting piece if you are intrigued by these things. So it was written when he was very ill, and this movement is really him. And when you realise that he was very ill when he wrote it, it's got this really kind of almost drugged, very quiet, calm, and that kind of floatiness that you get when you're suffering from a fever. And then all of a sudden it picks up as if, oh my God, I'm better and better and better. And then it kind of goes, oh, maybe not. And yeah, it's just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I love, believe it or not, I love classical music, mainly because of my dad, who is, as far as I'm concerned, the world's biggest classical music buff. His issue, though, is that he will listen to nothing else. Admire him for being the most tunnel-visioned musical man I've ever met in my life. But I do like the occasional piece of classical. Anyway, I'm gonna. Hopefully, this works. I think that was well over our 30 seconds, but I don't care anymore.
Well, I don't think Beethoven's going to suit you. You know,
it's just beautiful, though, isn't it? And
it's just such an incredible piece, and every time you listen to it, it's something different. And you think it's peaked, and it just continues on. And it's just all of those kind of late quartets are really, really amazing.
I can imagine, actually. I mean, even just that little excerpt, you know, it could play with happy, sad, melancholy, and so on. It could be interpreted in so many ways.
Yeah, and I find it. Yeah, it's one of these kind of reassuring things. It's one of these kind of comfort blankets that, you know, it's good to know it's always there and that you can just have it if you need it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you just go, yeah, actually, that's there. At this point in my life, I just need to listen to that for or something. And, you know, everything's good again.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, you know, folks watching, if you like what you hear, go and listen to the whole thing. You know, 30 seconds or 40 seconds as that was is definitely not enough. And yeah. But anyway. Okay, so just moving on to the next question.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, again, it's something I've asked all of our guests, which is, it affects us all. This situation we're going through, and obviously, you know, we're all, you know, you and I and most of the people that we talk to day to day are very, very lucky to still be doing what we're doing. That's not to say that we don't have our challenges, obviously. But just from your perspective as a, you know, completely, you know, freelance writer and doer of things, how have things changed for you, and how do you see things evolving or changing for you as we creep out of this, the worst of it, and hopefully into a new dawn? Yeah.
It's pretty tough, to be honest. And I mean, I'm in a, you know, and I think everybody who's in a privileged position, you know, I've got a nice house, family, you know, we're secure, we're safe, etc. And there's people infinitely worse off. And at the same time, I've got virtually no work. You know, I've had virtually no work since February this year. This was going to be a really busy year. I had one book to kind of do, one book to start preparing for. There was various film projects that Adam and I were going to start working on. So yeah, it was going to be a really busy year, really exciting year, and everything's on ice. It might get picked up later in the year, but everything is, you know, dependent on the virus, and there's no written work out there. You know, there's no paid written work out there. Everything obviously has moved online, and it's you know, it's lovely to be asked in these things. But you know, brands are cutting down all the training stuff, which I was due to be doing, which is, you know, at least half of my work. All that stopped. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. You know, it's pretty tough. The garden's looking good. You know.
Your finger's looking green.
Yeah, the garden's looking good, and I'm baking more than I have done. You know, all of that, but there's just not a lot of work out there.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, the second part of the question is, you know, how will it change? What's it going to look like when we come out? Nobody knows. It's not going to be back to what it was. I think, you know, and I really feel for you guys, you know, because the amazing job that you've done in taking whiskey out to people, rather than sort of people having to travel. You know, you going, okay, right, we'll come and we will teach you about whiskey, you know, and that was so important, you know, to have that human interaction, you know, to have human interaction, bars and distillery visitor centres and events, you know, that is part and parcel of what the hospitality industry is about, what whiskey industry is all about. And it's going to be interesting to see how we tiptoe our way out of it, and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And the other thing is, you know, all this, you know, the Zoom stuff is fine, and it's good, and it's good fun, and I enjoy doing it. So don't get me wrong on that at all. But you know, people are going to get fairly jaded quite soon about, you know, just doing yet another online tasting, I think. So I think the important thing is to try and find what else this sort of medium can do. You know, I think, you know, everybody went quite rightly, right, okay, let's get stuff online and let's do it online, let's do this. But I think we'll have to continue to develop this and refine this and make it more interesting and make it more exciting, make it more fun, because I can't see things going right back to where they were. So in a way, that is what's, you know, from a work point of view, that's what I'm thinking about. You know, what is the nature of communication in this post-corona world? Even though it won't necessarily be post-corona, but you know what I mean? How are we going to talk to each other? How are we going to communicate? What's allowed? What are the opportunities? You know, what can you do on a laptop screen or a smart TV that you can't do in a whiskey lounge tasting? You know, I think we've got to turn it on its head. You've got to look at the problem in the reverse and say, right, how can I use this to my advantage, rather than saying, well, this is just something which I have to do. It's a necessity that I use this, and I actually don't like it. Yeah. So that's exciting, you know, and that's kind of, yeah, as I said, that's kind of keeping me up. And you know, and I'm doing more stuff for the website, the whiskymanual.uk, which I'm enjoying, you know, because I don't have an editor and I can just write whatever shite I want.
Oh, alert. Dave untethered. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, and yeah, I mean, we've obviously, as soon as lockdown occurred, I remember I was doing a tasting in Sheffield at one of our regular lovely pubs, the Sheffield Tap in Sheffield Station.
Oh, that's an amazing pub. I love that.
With the microbrewery, and you know, the tasting.
The number of trains I've missed in Sheffield.
Why doesn't that? But I was doing a tasting there with Steph Holt from Speciality, an Asian tasting. Interestingly enough, it was Kavalan, Amrit, and Nika. And it was the first tasting of the series, and we were really excited because we were essentially going on a little tour together in the UK, and the Sheffield tasting was the first one. I remember literally as I was pulling up in the car to the pub, the Boris announcement saying, "From today, don't go to the pub." And I'm thinking, oh shit.
Oh. Oh,
yeah. And so anyway, right, okay, well, I'm here. You know, people are expecting this is going to go ahead, and we'll see what happens. And we put the thing. I think only one person didn't show up.
Right.
And we went ahead with the tasting. And I just remember at the end of the tasting, we were kind of both looking at our phones and the headlines and everything that was going on. And I turned to Steph and said, "Do you know what? I think it's possible this might be the last tasting we do for a while." And I don't think even then I knew how right I was, because literally that was the last tasting we did, and that was, I think, the back end of March.
Yeah.
And yeah, subsequent to that, we've just been trying to evolve, you know, literally turn our business from this to this.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, it was the 16th of March, apparently. I've been corrected. And so, yeah, so you're absolutely right. It's just a question of working with what you've got.
Yeah.
You know, we've got lovely customers and lovely people out there who want to taste whiskey and want to be entertained, and you know, hopefully that's what we're able to do, albeit in a slightly less physical manner. You know? But anyway, you know, you're part of this. You know, you're here. You're
and it's great fun. You know, this is what we do. But you know, we have to keep moving it forward.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. So yeah, you've got to look for the positives.
Absolutely, and there will be a time where maybe we don't get entirely back to the way we were, but we'll all get together at some point, hopefully even within a meter of each other, and
we'll get each other.
I just chuck whiskey at each other. Open wide. Anyway, enough of that. Again, we could go on all day about that. Tell us about your third whiskey during Desert Island lockdown.
Yeah, third whiskey, Redbreast. I love Irish whiskey, and I love Redbreast.
Sorry, Amanda's waving her arms about, going, yay.
And I remember it was, again, this is kind of showing my age, really. I did this tasting. It was for Caterer magazine, a long time back. And I think it was maybe just after Cooley had opened. So Cooley was just beginning to introduce whiskies into the market. But you kind of forget that nobody really knew about Irish whiskey. There was Jameson, there was Bushmills, and that was it. Unless you went to Ireland and you could find some intriguing little oddities. But essentially, it was two brands. Bushmills, Jameson, boom. And then I discovered this whiskey made in very small quantities called Redbreast, and fell in love with it, and began to become evangelical about the quality of this whiskey and why the hell don't people drink it? And then I realized it's because you couldn't make it available. So why the hell is this whiskey not available? I remember taking it very early. I think it was first or second Whiskey Live in South Africa. Taking a bottle out there and showing it to people, and they went ballistic. I've never had an experience like it. That I was being quite honestly chased around the floor of Whiskey Live in Cape Town by people clutching my bottle of Redbreast, with people running after me going, please, 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 can you give me some more? And every time I went back, and I used to go there every year, we'd always get people going, have you got any Redbreast? And there was just this buzz that started about it.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's just one of and it's this amazing whiskey. It's an amazing story behind it. Single pot still is just one of the great styles of whiskey. It was the gold standard of whiskey in the 19th century. Scotch could not come close to it in the 19th century. And in retrospect, Irish distillers did the right thing, because they built a brand and they began to build a category. And then they launched the single pot still, going, aha, this is what we've got up our sleeve. And all praise to the guys, to Barry Crockett and all the guys, Barry Walsh and all the guys, the old guard of Irish distillers who could have said, all right, we've got this big distillery, we're just going to make Jameson and we're just going to make Paddy. And they went, no, we're going to continue to make Redbreast, we're going to continue to make Green Spot. We're going to utilise this huge distillery in as many different ways as we can to produce as many different amazing whiskies as we can. So hats off to them. That's an incredible team down there, and just an awesome dram. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I suspect, as you're hinting at, that their legacy will live on and on and on, because you look at the new breed of Irish distillers and how many of them are now looking back to the single pot still. And,
exactly.
I think I love it. I mean, in fact, we had Laura Hemmey on last week, and
great, excellent.
I think she actually chose a Redbreast as well. So that's a testament to the quality. Right, let me just share my screen as confidently as possible. Right, so there we had that. Let me just. Right, so there we have your Redbreast 15-year-old.
Yep. No, we haven't. We've got Hackshoe.
It should be. Has it not come up?
Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm looking at a slide that says Hackshoe 18-year-old, but that's all right. We've got Redbreast 15. I'm happy.
Well, I'm going to make a slight correction to it, because I've got single blend on there from Laura's choice of a Lochside, which was a single blend, but this certainly isn't.
The stuff that's happening in Ireland is just extraordinary at the moment. You know, the place is going.
It's on fire.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting in the next decade or so. Sort of finding out exactly what all these different distilleries, what their interpretation of Irish whiskey is. You know, it's people are often saying, you know, it's a renaissance of Irish whiskey. I don't accept that actually. I think it's Irish whiskey 2.0. You know, it starts from scratch pretty much. That makes it really exciting. You know.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I think the fact that so many of them use whiskies from other distilleries to begin with makes it quite interesting as to what they're going to do with their own whiskey. Are they going to try and make it taste the way the whiskey they've got from other distilleries taste?
Yeah, it's funny. I was speaking. I did a wee Zoomy thing with Noel Sweeney.
Oh yeah,
who was at Cooley's now down making Faircullen, Powers Court down Wicklow. And of course, I mean, you know, he's using Cooley stock, but he's going, you know, I'm allowed to. I made this whiskey. You know, this is what it was meant to taste like. You know? So, but he's also caught in it. He's also sort of saying, you know, but stills are different here, and the versatility is different here. Will the whiskey be the same as what I made? Maybe not. You know, it might be slightly. So yeah.
It's interesting times, like you say. It's I think we're going to see lots of interesting whiskey coming out. So tell us about the tune.
Yeah, the tune. So the tune is Africa Dub Chapter 3 by Joe Gibbs, who's a record producer in Jamaica. So, and this kind of dates right back to my punk days. When I got a Jamaica, there was this amazing record shop in Glasgow called Lost Chord, and the guy who owned it, second-hand record store mainly, and the guy who owned it disappeared every for months at a time. The shop was closed, and then he'd re-emerge, and he'd been over in Jamaica, and he'd go to Jamaica every year and just pick up all these amazing sides of real proper heavy roots reggae, which nobody was listening to at the time. And that's kind of how I got introduced to it. And then it's kind of post Oddmans in Edinburgh, I moved to Bristol. And the reason I moved to Bristol actually was predominantly because of music, actually. There's such an amazing music scene down there, and an amazing reggae scene as well. So, you know, dub reggae has just always been there with me. You know, I just find it amazing. I just love it. And thankfully my wife loves it as well. And I just thought, you know, it's another kind of little musical milestone. It's another style of music I particularly love. It's another style of whiskey that I love. And there's something about the heaviness and the power, but the seductive beauty of heavy dub reggae that seems to match with the seductive heavy power of Redbreast, if that isn't being way too schmaltzy.
Sounds good to me. I've got Amanda's growling for some reason. Maybe that's a good start. Okay, so let's listen to a bit of the chapter 3. No technical issues, i.e. volume. No, it's not enough. It's not.
No, it's not. It's not nearly enough. I've got so many versions of that. Yeah, I've still got the original one, which is Jamaican pressing, which is like, you know, the vinyl's about an inch thick, and then it got a CD of it, and we've got another one, and yeah, I mean, but the Jamaican pressing is still the best. It's still the biggest and the richest and the heaviest, and there's bubbles in the vinyl. It's glorious stuff. Love it.
Well, you're educating us as always, Dave. So
you know, I can't work without music. You know, I always have, unless I'm tasting, tasting silence. But you know, I've always got music going on. I know I like the parallels between music and whiskey, and the thinking of musicians and the thinking of distillers, and where innovation comes, and how people kind of take a theme and kind of take it off into different directions. You know, just that nature of innovation, and trying to appeal to people and speak to people, and, you know, speaking to your emotions, you know, rather than just your analytical side or your intellectual side. You know, and you know, music. You know, if you're a musician, you probably listen to it you can't help but listening to it from a technical point of view. But you know, it's got soul, and I think spirits have got soul as well. And we're maybe all a little bit guilty of talking up production a bit and being analysts of whiskey, rather than also allowing space to let it speak to our emotions. But ultimately, that's why people drink it.
Yeah,
Drink it because it puts a smile on their face. You know, really. Don't drink whiskey. Don't drink whiskey if it makes you sad. Jeez, no. You know, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. I've met a few of those. Okay, so Dave, next question to you.
Can I just say I can't actually see you anymore? I've just got kind of holding slide up.
It may be just a bit of lag. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, I can hear you fine. No, that's okay. As long as you can hear me.
As long as you can hear me, that's fine. It should hopefully sort itself out. I can certainly see you, so that's fine.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So the question that I've asked, and I will ask of you, because I'm actually quite curious to hear your answer to this, is what cultural figure or historical figure, past or present, would you most like to have a dram and a natter with?
Oh, God.
You didn't read the email, did you, Dave?
No, I did, and you know, it's another one of these that kind of keeps kind of changing and keeps fluctuating. I think my answer would be an obscure Scottish poet called Robert Ferguson, who kind of predates Robert Burns, but who was the first person to begin writing about whiskey in Scots rather than Gaelic. Lived in Edinburgh. Died very young. Died mad. And yeah, he would be a really interesting entry into the wild world of Edinburgh in the tail end of the 18th century, which is just a fascinating time, where all these ideas were kind of flying around. You know, geology was founded, and you know, you get David Hume, philosophy, you got Adam Smith around there. You've got literature. Scotland's just ablaze at that point. And Ferguson, I think, would be a very interesting character to hang out with for a bit. I think that would be good from a purely, and I know you asked me what one. I think from a purely personal point of view, it would be my dad, because my dad died when I was quite young. So I actually never really had a drink with my dad. And I think if I was, you know, of any historical figure, that's the person that I would most love to just sit down and have a dram with, because we never managed to do it. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
No. It's a long time ago, man. But yeah, you know, that's the honest answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tricky one, because, like you say, it's like choosing the music, choosing the whiskey. It can change from day to day, but certainly where your dad's concerned, I'm sure that would be that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, let's talk about your next whiskey if we can, Dave.
Yeah. Next dram is Rittenhouse Rye. See, we're going around the world here because it's just incredible value for money. Cliched Scotsman there, but it's just one of the great rye whiskies, and loads of people are now making rye, but again, this is kind of like a broken record here, but rye was a bit like the single pot still of American whiskey. There were very, very few people making it until relatively recently, and what was made was in very small quantities. So Jimmy Russell made some at Wild Turkey, and the Beams, Parker Beam made it at Heaven Hill, and that was it. And it was kind of this, almost kind of under the counter stuff. And then you read the books and you read the cocktail manuals, and everything was about rye, and it was just this forgotten style because it was too big. And Rittenhouse was the first real proper rye that I tried, and it's just, I always describe rye as being like Clint Eastwood's kind of swaggering into a saloon here with the doors flying open, and it just kind of comes in and goes, bam, hello, I'm here. And sometimes you kind of need that, you need that in a whiskey. You need that. I love subtle whiskies and gentle whiskies, and the Antiquary and the Hack Shoes had that red-breasted weight, and Rittenhouse has just got attitude. It's just a swaggering beast. And I love it for that. I love it.
Yeah. I think I remember trying rye for the first time many years ago, and similar to the reaction some people when they first taste peated, heavily peated Scotch whiskies, and they just turn to you and say, "That's not whiskey."
What is this?
Similarly, I remember as a teenager going to McDonald's on Oxford Street / Tottenham Court Road, and I remember ordering whatever I ordered, but I ordered a Coke, and I tasted this thing, and I thought it was Coke that was off, but then I found out it was root beer, which I'd never tasted before, and they didn't serve it much beyond that, I don't think, but it's just it tastes a bit like it, but it's not it.
It's that kind of alien flavor, you just as you think you've got your head around it, and then suddenly somebody goes, "Yeah, have you tried this?" It's kind of, whoa, where have you come from?
Exactly. And now we've got all these crazy European ryes and things as well.
I think what Patrick Zidane is doing at Millstone, which is essentially saying, listen, it was Dutch distillers and German distillers that took rye to America. We started all of this, so this is actually this is how it's made. Millstone rye is just off the scale. Stork from just outside Berlin, glorious, utterly glorious. And then you got 5 distilleries in Scotland making rye. How good is that? That's just awesome. It's great to see. I think what's fascinating about it is the way that rye is not just this single thing anymore. It's not because because it was so limited. Everybody thought, okay, I understand what rye is about. Then suddenly you've got all these different distillers making slightly different styles of it and approaches to it. So the ryes from Kentucky are significantly different to the ryes from the country which makes more rye whiskey than any other in the world, which is Canada. And Canadian rye is just utterly sublime. And a hell of a lot of those American ryes are still coming from Alberta distillers. Let's face it. But the approach to Canadian rye, I mean, something like Lock 40. Gee, what an amazing whiskey that is. But that is different. That's different. And then you go to South Carolina, it's going to be different again for the different rye's different. Toad rye whiskey from Oxford. God, that's amazing. Corey's making some extraordinary whiskies there. I'm really excited about rye.
Absolutely. I can tell. I am too. Right. So tell us about the chone that you've chosen to.
This kind of goes back to I was also aware that I was just getting a bit kind of nostalgic about everything. So I was just kind of talking about, oh yeah, I remember, and this is, you know, a song from my past or whatever. So I wanted to pick something contemporary, but at the same time link it with this kind of story of how I ended up where I am. So I was in Bristol. So I moved from Oddbins from Edinburgh into Bristol, as I said. And when I was there, it's again, sorry, it's a bit poignant, but I've read in the local listings magazine this guy called Keith Tippett, who sadly just died 2 days ago, an amazing jazz pianist, was doing a gig, and I didn't realize he was Bristolian. I went along, and it blew my mind. It utterly was just one of these gigs that just absolutely blew my mind. My dad was a big jazz fan. I kind of dabbled in jazz a little bit, but didn't really know a huge amount about it. But I got in deep when I was in Bristol, and ended up actually writing about music. So that was my first writing gig. And actually my very first interview, my first published piece, was an interview with Keith and Julie. And I just think, you know, jazz and you know, jazz and whiskey goes together, and it can be a bit cliched. But I think jazz and whiskey is just one of the great combinations, again, on that kind of slightly deeper level, not wishing to over-intellectualize it, but, you know, the nature of improvisation, the nature of just being out there, just being dangerous and exciting and different. Yeah, you know, jazz just does it for me, and I continue to listen to a lot of what my daughter calls broken trumpet music. But the piece I've chosen is a new single from this amazing sax player, young sax player, who's called Nubia Garcia, London-based. So there's some extraordinary young musicians coming out of London. And the style is slightly different. So they're taking a lot from jazz history, from spiritual jazz. They're taking hip-hop styles, dub styles, and everything. And there's a real, it's not a jazz revival, it's just a new generation suddenly taking hold of this music and saying, well, this is ours, and we can meld it into what we would like it to be. And again, I think there's this kind of interesting parallel that's taking place in whiskey, which is, it's not just old guys like us with grey beards. You know, there is a young generation of people out there going, yes, but whiskey can be this as well. And that's hugely refreshing. So yeah, more power to them all. So this is a little bit of pace from Nubia.
You hope.
This is kind of the bit of pick is kind of the climax of the opening solo.
Yeah, I had it queued up. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, here it is, Pace by Nubia Garcia. There you go, another 30 seconds. It's never enough.
Extraordinary. Just, yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah, it's lovely.
Pretty powerful stuff, Dave. Amanda.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's a single. It's just and it starts very, very quietly, and it kind of builds up to this crescendo and kind of dips back down again. Yeah, she's just utterly remarkable.
Yeah.
So yeah. If you like jazz, check out the new Scottish jazz scene as well. Some really amazing stuff happening up there as well.
Amanda, during that whole section, held up a post-it note, as is her wont, to say, "Admit your hatred."
You hate jazz.
She says, "I hate jazz. I don't hate. I'm a blues lover, right?
Yeah,
and therefore I must love certain parts of jazz.
Yeah.
Sometimes find the slightly more dissonant stuff a bit more challenging, but I will listen to it, and it doesn't mean I hate it."
No, but it's a bit like whiskey, isn't it? I mean, you're not going to like every whiskey in the world, you know, and you're not going to like some of the slightly more dissonant whiskies sometimes. And
Yeah.
and I mean, you often say to people, "Say, oh, I tried whiskey and I don't like it." It's a bit like saying, I tried, I had a curry once and I didn't like it, so I don't like food. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. You will find something that you like.
Yeah.
Uh,
And by the way, you sound like a 4-year-old, and I should know.
Yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily, if I were you, I wouldn't necessarily start with some of this broken trumpet stuff.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so my final kind of formal question to you, Mr. Broom, if you don't mind, is what, and I might broaden this out slightly actually. I was going to ask what's next for whiskey in terms of innovations of perhaps areas of the world or the country or wherever that we should be looking out for. I'm going to broaden that out to, because
universe.
Yeah, I brought it out to spirits, because obviously you do write about whiskey, but you write about all kinds of spirits. So it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts.
I mean, whiskey first. It's going to be interesting. I think we're already kind of paddling in the shallow waters of a whiskey lake. So I think there's probably too much whiskey being made. This is globally. People aren't necessarily drinking more. They might be drinking better, but I just think there's too much whiskey. There's going to be too much whiskey out there. So on one hand, it's really exciting because there's lots of new distilleries, lots of new approaches, new countries, etc., etc. But at the same time, given the rise in volume, you're not seeing the commensurate rise in consumption. In fact, you're beginning to see Scotch on a slight decline as people begin to chip away at it. So it's going to be interesting for whiskey over the next few years, especially for some of the newer distillers, because they have to find their point of difference. They have to be authentic, they have to be high quality, and they have to do something that nobody else is doing. And that kind of window, there's too many metaphors here, but that kind of window of opportunity that I think is beginning to close. So I think it'd be, if you're thinking of opening a distillery in the next 5 years, I think you'll have an infinitely tougher job than somebody who's opened a distillery 5 years prior to that, who's about to have mature whiskey coming out in the market. At the same time, I think there's amazing innovation taking place. I think in terms of Scotch, over the past few years, I think the Scotch whiskey has become cognizant of the fact that everybody around the world is making really good stuff, and it needs to look at itself. I think some firms are doing it better than others, but yeah, I think there's a lot of very exciting stuff about to take place in Scotland. Looking at yeast, looking at barley varieties, looking now at different casks for finishing. Although I think that's just kind of a side issue to be perfectly honest. But the fact that rye is coming out there, etc., etc. Other countries, England, I'm really excited about what's happening in England. I think some very interesting whiskies getting made there. But every country in the world is making whiskey now.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely everywhere. And, I was in Australia recently, some amazing stuff coming out there now. And New Zealand, incredibly impressive. 3-4-year-old whiskies coming out there, and they're just sublime and very different to the Aussie style, but it's much more gentle, much sweeter style of whiskey. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say who the next big thing is going to be, because there are going to be so many really, really exciting whiskies out there, which kind of leads into that kind of second part of the question, which is what else? Well, I've been saying rum is going to be the next big thing since I think 1993.
Since you were a boy.
So I'm loath to say that again, but there does seem to finally be a real buzz about rum, and a genuine interest in the consumer about rum and about good rum. And it's about 5-6 distilleries in Scotland making rum now, but there's some great rums out there, and a lot of whiskey drinkers beginning to make that jump across the rum, because flavor wise, there's similarities. So there's flavor cues that people can pick up on, and also it's cheaper. You know, which is important. So, you know, that's exciting. You know, being a typically perverse journalist, I'm really excited about Geneva because nobody's drinking it. And I'm really excited about Calvados because nobody's drinking it. And I'm not going to say they're going to be the next big things, but there's some really good stuff going out there. And then agave, you know, endlessly fascinating. It's a golden age for quality spirits.
Yeah.
You know, which is phenomenal for the consumer. And another reason why whiskey distillers kind of need to be going, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
But you're not a whiskey drinker. Yeah. You're drinking rum as well. You know, people don't stick to one thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's the jump. You know, I was drinking Clairan the other night. You know, fantastic. You know, just finished another big bit of gin. Some really, really good gins coming out there. There's some very good gins coming out, but some really good gins.
Yeah. There's a lot of gin.
There's a lot of gin, you know, but there's some really good quality stuff. There's very good stuff coming out of Ireland. Nice stuff coming out of Scotland. Great stuff coming out of Australia. Really, wow. Botanicals they've got in Australia. It's just...
Amanda's just gone, as you know.
So yeah, and it's, you know, it's that kind of, you know, it's a glass half full, half empty kind of thing. Well, it's both, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and those with quality and those with a good business plan, and I'm no businessman, Jesus, but you know, they will be in a better place. You know, you can't just be an enthusiast making whiskey.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. I mean, I look, you know, as you say, it's a real halcyon time for whiskey in terms of production, but you can't help but think about the 80s and you know.
The thing, Eddie, you know, without putting a downer on it, is that sadly there aren't that many people in the whiskey industry who remember the 80s, especially the big companies. You know, because you know who lived through that. You know, and I think that's why, you know, firms like Ian MacLeod, for example, are much better placed. That's why Clarkless are so well placed. You know, as George would say, you know, we've been through God knows how many recessions. We know how to cope with it. Ian MacLeod knows how to cope with it. I wonder whether other firms with keen young marketing people, you kind of need the at points like this, you need the greybeards coming along going, well, you know, son, I've seen this one before.
with an ABBA soundtrack.
Yeah, you know, just being the gloomy Scots kind of going, oh, don't get too excited, sonny. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
History.
I'm down with that. All right. Well, let's drag ourselves back into the positive and
yes.
and talk about your next whiskey.
Yes. My final whiskey is. I was just looking at your T-shirt there. Is Lagavulin. Yeah, final one is Lagavulin 16, because it's just awesome, you know. I love Islay, you know. It's, you know, and I think, you know, and the story of Lagavulin is an interesting one. You know, the way in which, you know, when classic malts first appeared, the quite logical marketing was the bulk of the people who start drinking malts out of this selection will try Glenkinchie or Dalwhinnie, and they'll love it. And only crazy bastards will actually get as far as Talisker or Lagavulin, because, you know, it's too dissonant, it's too weird, it's too out there, you know, it doesn't appeal to the palate. Of course, the exact opposite happened, and you saw the Islay wave. You know, that everybody in the world suddenly went, wow, smoky whiskey. It's incredible. I love it. And boom, off we went. And, you know, as a result, you know, I remember, you know, back in the bad old days when you're more distilleries not operational in the island, and they were operational. Now you've got 9, potentially you've got 12. But, you know, which we can discuss at some other point maybe. But you know, just the way that and the other reason for it really is, I've got great friends there. You know, we holiday there, we go there a lot. And it was the first place that, thanks to Jim McEwen, I realised, or I was shown, that whiskey is about community. You know, it's not about this. It's about this thing called the distillery. It's about these things called stills, but it's about the way it influences and affects and touches the community, and the ripple effect that a distillery has across the entire island is huge. And you saw that in the bad days, and you see it in the good days now, where you've got farmers growing. You've suddenly got the island really linked back together, you know. So you have Kilhome and you've got Bruichladdich growing barley, you know, farmers growing barley for these distilleries. That's amazing. That's great. Yeah, it's an absolute beacon of what whiskey is all about. And I think for me, you know, I love all Islay whiskies, but for me, Lagavulin has just got a special place in my heart because it's the one distillery I've been to most often. I know the guys. I can always smell my way around Lagavulin. You know, every room's got a slightly different smell, and yeah, I just love the place. So yeah, and it's good with Coke. Yeah.
And what do you call it when it's with Coke?
The smoky cokey, which I didn't name. Yeah, I think Andy Gemmell called it smoky cokey first, actually.
I think it would be claimed by one of our previous guests, our good friend Colin Dunn.
Yeah, it might be, but certainly I heard it from Andy Gemmell a long time ago. But anyway, he and Colin can slug it out.
Yeah, we'll let him do that.
It works, you know. It's amazing. It works, and you know, I've had almost had stand-up fights in tastings when I've kind of, right, okay, just add some Coke to it, and people are just you know utterly offended by the concept.
Yeah, more to the offended.
Listen, I have more here. Just give it a shot, and if you don't like it, I'll give you another dram. It's fine. Just give it a shot. Well, we did last year at World Class. Frank from the Pot Still, and I did a bar takeover of Kelvin Grove Cafe downstairs, and all we had was whiskey. So it was whiskey behind the shelf, and we had 3 taps of pre-mixed whiskey and Coke, Lagavulin, Killeel, and Talisker. And you know, people were coming down going, "Oh, can I have a gin and tonic?" No, there's whiskey. Oh, I'll have a pint. I said, well, you can have a half pint of whiskey and Coke. And then it was the same reaction. It's kind of, oh, really sure. And geez, we sold out. you know, after the first one, boy, that place is rocking.
There you go. Then maybe that's where all the whiskey needs to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so tell us about the tune that you've accompanying the.
Yeah. Well, I picked this again, kind of. Partly to kind of round this whole thing off, but my kind of journey across the UK. So I ended up in Brighton, where I am now, and making friends with club promoters down here. So again, kind of music was really important. So yeah, this is kind of the 90s when you know don't necessarily remember a huge amount about it, but good nights were had. And I remember this one. I do actually remember this one particular night in the Zap Club at the end of the night. And a DJ called Andrew Weatherall, who sadly died earlier on this year, he dropped, as I believe the young people say, this tune called Smoke Belch as the very, very last night. And it was just one of the great musical moments of my life. And it just seemed a really appropriate title, slightly cliched, for Lagavulin and Smoke Belch. You know, I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want? Yeah, it's extraordinary track.
Well, believe it or not, I think
you're the memory of Andrew Weatherall.
Indeed. I think you'll be impressed. I've actually got it queued up properly, I think. Anyway, here we go.
Let's go for 12 minutes again. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just leave it on. I gave it a little bit more than the.
Yeah, thank you.
It deserved it.
Any more, I'd have been, yeah, I mean, just really happy memories, and yeah, it's a goodie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's nearly 13 minutes long, so I think I need to. I'm trying to make somehow available the playlist so that people can actually come and listen to your whole playlist through the whole thing.
Cool. Yeah.
And, my technical nous might not be up to it, but I'll give it a go. Anyway, listen.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about Amberlight, the Amberlight.
Oh, yeah.
I know you've got a very exciting event coming up on the 25th, I think.
25th, yep. So yeah, in brief, Amberlight. So friend Adam Park, who's film director, a very talented young man, came up with this idea after we've been chatting over a few drams to make a film about whiskey, but kind of whiskey culture. It's looking at how whiskey and Scottish culture kind of have interlinked over the centuries. So we did that a couple of years back now. It just won Programme of the Year at the Fortnum and Mason Awards. You were shortlisted for congratulations on that. And we beat Jimmy Oliver, which is amazing. Yeah, it's had a really good reception. So authors talking Alistair Gray, Ian Rankin, some great musicians playing music and just not talking about whiskey and music, but again that kind of parallel thing, the thinking of a musician and they're thinking about Scotland and music and whiskey, and suddenly all the whiskey makers and the musicians are saying the same thing, but they're saying the same thing within their different fields, and that just really fascinates me. So we are on Vimeo video on demand, and the Burning Bridges channel, which is just launching. It's their new Arts channel. It's on the 25th, and have linked up with the lovely people at Royal Mile Whiskies and doing this slightly ambitious or crazy idea of having a director's commentary and a drink along at the same time. So you can get in touch with Royal Mile Whiskies, get tasting packs. It's 5 drams in there. Gives you a free link into watching the film. And you can watch the film on one screen, on the big screen, and then have on your phone Adam and I kind of burbling on about the film. So it's a bit like one of these directors' extras that you get on or used to get on DVDs. And you can mute us if you wish and just enjoy the drams. But yeah, we figured that that'd just be quite a nice little interactive way of doing it, because in some of the screenings we did around the country, we had drams, so people were sipping on whiskey while watching the film. So yeah, here's a way to do it in the comfort of your own home and hear a little bit about the film.
Yeah.
And we'll do a Q&A and stuff after it. So yeah, 8 o'clock on the 25th of this month. Just go to royalmilewhiskies.com and the packs are there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll certainly be tuning in if the 4-year-old allows.
Excellent.
Dave, I need to obviously ask you if, well, not if. It may sound a bit of a, no, it's not. So your basic luxuries are obviously Michael Jackson's Malt Companion, because no whiskey drinker should be without it, frankly.
Did not.
And certainly from my point of view, was the thing that started it all. And then really it's up to you what further luxury, and if you had to narrow down one of the tunes and one of the whiskeys, could you be talked into it?
Could I be talked into it? What would I like to? How long am I on this island?
Well, forevermore.
Oh God, yeah, I don't think I could listen to Smoke Belch for the rest of my life. Like if it was the Beethoven, it would be the Incredible String Band. Yeah,
right.
That would have an incredible string band, but it would be, what whiskey would I drink? The Antiquary. Yeah. So yeah, it'd be number one. There you go. Yeah, I would drink blends. I would knock coconuts off the tree and use coconut water and make long drinks. Or yeah. So there you go. I'd be happy.
So basically,
my beard would be even longer.
So basically, we
bananas for shoes.
Yeah. So basically, we needn't have bothered with 4 out of the 5 whiskey.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a funny one. No.
We could have started.
It's funny. It kind of depends where the desert island is, because people think of a desert island, but technically speaking, a desert island could be St Kilda. So if it was somewhere like St Kilda, then it would be Lagavulin.
Yeah.
You like on Nubia Garcia.
Okay. Now,
I'm thinking tropical climes, and
So, just to finish off, I had a few. You've seen them now. So this is the last time we were together, Dave.
Was indeed.
And there's you and lovely Martine at Port Ellen advertising our salty sea dog. Who's this miscreant? Look at him. Who does he think he is, reading your book upside down?
That's the Australian edition.
And then, do you remember that, Dave?
Oh God! That was the midge attack.
That was Midge Camp.
Oh my God! I've never, it was. Now you know where all the midges come from.
That was
just, all live just above Kalila.
They literally do.
It was hell. It was hell. It was like Alien. When Sigourney Weaver goes down into the alien cave. Where all the eggs are and everything. Exactly. It's exactly like that, but with midges.
And Sam trying to explain it away was even better.
Yeah.
And then I was Googling earlier on Dave Broom without beard. Yeah. And do you know what? Quite a few results came up, but the one that came up that I found the most amusing was this one here. And do you know what? Apparently Jason Momoa, aka Aquaman, had shaved his beard off. That's why it was caught on page 1 of Dave Broom without a beard. And there you go. The similarity is absolutely bewildering, isn't it? I mean,
Aqua Grandpa.
Anyway.
Thank you for that.
My pleasure. Anyway, listen, Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a treat, my friend.
Really appreciate you coming on and giving us an hour and a half of your life. You'll never get back.
No, it's been a blast. I think I'll put the pairings up on the website as well. So
yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. That would be great. So all it remains for me to say is thank you, Dave. I'm not going to try and get the Desert Island Discs music on because, frankly, we'll just imagine it. Yeah. But Dave Broom, this has been your Desert Island Drams. Thank you very much. And